The Arabic cut through the crystal and whined like a blade. Morton Ashcroft's hand froze on the water pitcher. Listen, boy, the Ashcroft child needs to stay on the list long enough to look legitimate. Then we'll move him to deceased after the governor's election. The billionaire at table 12 didn't know Morton spoke 7 languages. Didn't know he'd spent 18 months in Damascus. Didn't know the Ashcroft child he just casually sentenced to death was 4-year-old Caleb, dying of leukemia 3 floors above a hospital this man controlled. And Tiberius Draymore definitely didn't know that, in 90 seconds, the words coming out of Morton's mouth would destroy a $4.7 billion empire, expose a governor, and save a dying boy's life. But first, you need to understand the 72 hours that brought them here. The ex-wife who married the enemy, the $47,000 deadline, and the night everything burned down. This is that story. Morton stood in the staff bathroom of Rousseau, staring at his phone screen like it might suddenly rewrite reality. The banking app glowed with brutal honesty. $11,427.18. 72 hours until the deposit was due. $47,000. Without it, Princeton Plainsboro Medical Center wouldn't start Caleb's treatment. With it, his son had a 73% chance of survival. Without it, Morton's throat closed. He couldn't finish the thought. The bathroom mirror showed a stranger. Sunken eyes, hollow cheeks, gray threading through brown hair at 28. He'd lost 35 pounds in 6 months. His black server pants hung loose, held up by a belt notched twice beyond its original holes. The shoes, generic non-slips from Payless, were splitting at the left sole. He'd superglued them together this morning. Under his shirt, hidden against his chest, hung a tarnished silver locket. Inside, 2 photos of Caleb. One from before, one from after the chemo stole his hair. The math played in his head like a nightmare on repeat. 3 jobs, no sleep, still drowning. Rousseau, Wednesday to Sunday, 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. Tips averaged $300 to $600 on good nights. Tonight needed to be exceptional. Home Depot, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. $17.50 an hour moving lumber and mixing paint. $700 weekly. Uber, Saturday to Sunday mornings, 4 a.m. to 11 a.m. $200 if he pushed through exhaustion and accepted every ride. Total monthly, $6,200 to $7,800. Maybe. Monthly expenses made the income irrelevant. Caleb's care facility, $6,000. Shared apartment in Irvington, $850 split 3 ways. Medications the insurance denied, $1,200. Gas, food, phone, $400. He was caught in a tide. Every month, he fell further behind. Medical bills bred like bacteria, $40,000 in collections, $18,000 in payment plans, another $60,000 pending. But none of that mattered anymore. In 72 hours, he either had $47,000, or he'd have to look his son in the eyes and explain why Daddy couldn't save him. His phone buzzed. Voicemail from 2:47 p.m. He'd listened 11 times already. He pressed play. "Hi, Daddy. It's me." Caleb's voice, small, hoarse from chemotherapy, but still bright with 4-year-old optimism. "The nurse said you're working really hard to make me better. I drew you a picture today. It's you and me when I'm all better, and we go to the beach like we used to. Remember when we found the crab? I miss the beach. I miss you too. But it's okay because you're fighting the bad cells. That's what Nurse Claudette said. You're fighting them for me. I love you, Daddy. Are you coming to read to me tonight?" Morton pressed his palm against the cold tile wall, breathed through the spike of grief, threatening to crack him open. "You can do this," he whispered to his reflection. "Just get through tonight. He needs you." What the diners at Rousseau didn't know, what no one in Newark knew, was that Morton Ashcroft wasn't just a desperate father working 3 jobs. 4 years ago, he'd been a Defense Intelligence Agency linguist. Top secret/SCI clearance. 4 years in Iraq, Syria, UAE, Saudi Arabia. He spoke Arabic, 5 dialects, plus Farsi, Kurdish, French, Spanish, Turkish, Hebrew. His specialty, high-value target interrogation. He'd sat across from ISIS commanders and Syrian intelligence officers, extracting information using nothing but language and cultural manipulation. He'd left when Caleb was born. Traded war zones for stability. Intelligence work for family dinners. Classified briefings for bedtime stories. The irony was so sharp it drew blood. He'd spent years interrogating dangerous men in hostile territories. Now he couldn't afford to save his son in his own country. A knock rattled the bathroom door. "Morton, VIP just sat. Table 12. Marcus wants you specifically." That was Kyle, the teenage host. Voice cracking with nerves. Morton splashed cold water on his face. Smoothed his apron. The locket pressed against his sternum, a reminder of what he was fighting for. He opened the door. The restaurant hummed with Friday night energy. Crystal clinked. Conversations cost more per minute than Morton made per hour. The air smelled of truffle oil, aged wine, and money so old it didn't need to announce itself. Table 12 sat by the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking downtown Newark's skyline. Prime real estate. Reserved for the kind of people who didn't ask about prices. The man sitting there radiated wealth in the way only billionaires do. Not flashy, but absolute. Bespoke charcoal suit. Patek Philippe catching the light. Hair swept back with that effortless precision that required a $300 stylist. Beside him, a woman in her 40s, blonde, elegant, wearing the kind of pearls that came from old pharmaceutical money. Morton recognized neither of them. He grabbed 2 menus and walked over, face composed into the mask of pleasant invisibility he wore like armor. "Good evening. Welcome to Rousseau. My name is Morton, and I'll be taking care of you tonight." The man didn't look up from his phone. Sparkling water. San Pellegrino. Chilled, not room temperature. "Of course, sir." The woman offered an apologetic smile. "Just still water for me, please." "Thank you." Morton turned to leave. "Wait." He stopped, turned back. The man was looking at him now, really looking. Eyes traveling from worn shoes to fraying collar to calloused hands. The kind of assessment that measured worth in seconds and found it lacking. A sneer curled his lip. "Make sure the glasses are actually clean this time. Last time I was here, the stemware was cloudy." Hard to find competent staff these days, isn't it? Loud enough for neighboring tables to hear. Morton's neck flushed hot, but his expression stayed blank. "I'll personally inspect the glasses, sir." "You do that." As Morton walked toward the service station, he heard it. Arabic, spoken loud enough to carry, confident no one would understand. خادم آخر يتظاهر بأنه يفهم التطور. Another servant pretending to understand sophistication. The dialect hit Morton like electricity. Damascene Arabic. Old City. Merchant Quarter. The exact dialect he'd translated for 18 months in Syria. His hand tightened on the tray. But Morton didn't know yet. Couldn't know that the man at table 12 wasn't just another arrogant customer. He was the man who controlled whether Caleb lived or died. The man who'd already decided the answer was death. And in 40 minutes, Morton was going to overhear exactly why. Morton reached the service station, where Marcus Delacroix, restaurant owner, former DIA extraction specialist, the only person in Newark who knew Morton's real background, was pouring wine with surgical precision. "You okay?" Marcus asked, without looking up. Table 12. "Who is he?" "Tiberius Draymore, billionaire, pharmaceutical guy, runs the Draymore Foundation." Marcus's hand paused mid-pour. "The foundation that funds Princeton Plainsboro. The foundation that controlled Caleb's treatment list." Morton's grip tightened on the water pitcher. "He's here often?" "3rd time this month. Always brings medical people. Always speaks Arabic when he doesn't want staff listening." Marcus met his eyes. "Be smart. Don't engage." But Morton was already doing the math. The man at table 12 controlled whether his son lived or died. And he didn't know Morton understood every word he'd just said. That felt like power. The first power Morton had held in 6 months. 6 months ago, everything had been different. The phone call came at 3:47 a.m. Caller ID, St. Barnabas Pediatric Oncology. Morton answered before the second ring, already knowing, the way parents know, that this call would cleave his life into before and after. "Mr. Ashcroft, Caleb's white blood cell count dropped overnight. We need you here immediately." He'd driven from East Orange to Livingston in 20 minutes, breaking every speed limit. Vanessa followed in her own car. She didn't speak. Not in the car. Not in the waiting room. Not when the doctor came out 6 hours later, with results that sounded like a death sentence wrapped in medical terminology. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Stage 2. Aggressive. We need to start chemotherapy immediately, followed by experimental CAR T-cell therapy. The doctor explained survival rates, 73% with full treatment, 18 months without, in that gentle voice medical professionals reserve for parents whose worlds are ending. Princeton Plainsboro has the best experimental program. The Draymore Foundation funds it. We can get Caleb on the list. How much? Morton had asked. The deposit is $47,000. Full treatment runs about $340,000, but with insurance and the compassionate use program. Morton looked at Vanessa. She was checking her phone. 6 weeks later, she served divorce papers. "I can't do this," she'd said, standing in their kitchen while Caleb played with trucks in his room, bald from the first round of chemo. "I can't watch him die. He's not going to die. We'll figure it out." "With what?" Her voice went sharp as broken glass. "You work at a warehouse. We have $22,000 in savings. We're already $40,000 in debt. We're drowning. So we drown together." "No." She put her phone down. My lawyer says I'm entitled to half of everything. I want the divorce finalized in 30 days. I want my half of the savings. And I want to waive parental rights. Morton stared at her. You want to abandon our son while he's dying? He's your son. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up to be a widow at 27, or spend my life paying off medical debt for a child who might not survive. She took $89,000 in the settlement, half their savings, her share of the car they sold, signed away all parental rights, walked out while Caleb was sleeping. Morton didn't see her again until she appeared on news broadcasts 8 months later, wearing diamonds and standing beside Governor Richard Caldwell of New Jersey. The society pages called it a fairy tale romance. Morton called it what it was: strategic opportunism. Governor Caldwell was 53, twice divorced, running for re-election on fiscal responsibility that included slashing Medicaid. He was also personal friends with Tiberius Draymore. 2 weeks ago, legal papers arrived. Emergency motion for custody modification. Vanessa, represented by an $800 per hour attorney, claimed Morton was financially unstable and unable to provide adequate care. The hearing was scheduled for 9 days from now, 2 days after Caleb's treatment deadline. If Vanessa won, she'd control all medical decisions. And her position, stated clearly in legal briefs, was that, quote, extraordinary experimental treatments that bankrupt state insurance programs should not be pursued when standard palliative care is available. Translation: let him die quietly. It's cheaper. Marcus had contacts who whispered the truth. Governor Caldwell was blocking Morton's Medicaid appeals. 3 applications, 3 rejections, all because Vanessa asked him to. If Caleb died, the scandal of the governor's wife abandoning her dying child disappeared. Clean, quiet, politically convenient. Morton pressed his palm against the cold steel counter. Every parent knows that moment, when you realize the system isn't designed to save your child. It's designed to measure whether your child's life is worth the cost. If you've ever felt that powerless rage, then you understand what Morton was about to do. Most people would stay silent, keep their heads down, protect their jobs. But Morton had nothing left to lose except his son. And the man at table 12 was about to learn exactly what that meant. Morton returned to table 12, carrying sparkling and still water, moving with the trained precision of someone who'd spent years being invisible in dangerous places. He filled Tiberius's glass first, then Dr. Voss's, placed them with geometric accuracy on the table. Can I start you with any appetizers this evening? Tiberius waved him off without looking up. Give us a minute with the menu. Of course, sir. Morton stepped back, positioning himself at the edge of their space, close enough to appear attentive, far enough to seem unintrusive. This was server choreography, proximity without presence. Actually, Tiberius said, his voice shifting into that performative tone wealthy men use when they want an audience. I do have questions about the menu, but I prefer to discuss food in its native language. This is a French restaurant, is it not? I'm familiar with the menu items, sir. The menu items. Tiberius's smile widened, cruel at the edges. Bonjour baguette, oui oui. That's the extent for someone like you, I assume. Dr. Voss looked uncomfortable. Tiberius, just order in English. No. This is standard, Helena. If you work at an establishment claiming French heritage, you should demonstrate basic cultural competency. He turned his full attention to Morton, eyes glittering with calculated malice. Watch this. You can always tell the quality of a restaurant by the education level of the staff. Then he switched languages. Not French. Arabic. Fast, fluid, deliberately archaic, using the Damascene dialect peppered with formal Syrian phrases designed to be incomprehensible to modern speakers. The words hit Morton like voltage. Every syllable landed with perfect clarity. Listen, boy. I want the duck, but only if the skin is crispy like glass. And bring me another wine. Something that doesn't taste like vinegar. Do you understand? Or am I speaking too fast for your little brain? Tiberius paused, waiting for the blank stare, the stammered apology, the call for a manager who spoke real languages. Dr. Voss looked down at her lap, humiliated on Morton's behalf. Morton stood perfectly still. His face betrayed nothing. Years of interrogation training had taught him the value of the neutral mask. Never show recognition. Never reveal understanding until the moment serves you. Tiberius leaned back, satisfied. He'd established dominance, proven superiority. Now he could speak freely. He switched to a more casual dialect, addressing Dr. Voss as if Morton were furniture. This place is perfect. No one understands what we're saying. Morton's pulse hammered in his ears, but his breathing stayed controlled. In Syria, showing emotion during interrogations meant losing control. He'd learned to listen without reacting, to absorb information like a sponge while appearing empty as air. What came next made his blood run cold. Let's discuss frankly. The Ashcroft child needs to stay on the list long enough to look legitimate. Then we'll move him to deceased after the governor's election. The Ashcroft child. Caleb, his son. They were discussing Caleb like he was a line item on a spreadsheet. Like his 4-year-old life was a political inconvenience to be managed. Tiberius continued, his voice casual, discussing murder the way other people discussed wine pairings. Caldwell wants this clean. The ex-wife will get custody, she'll refuse treatment, and we avoid scandal. Morton's hands were clasped in front of his apron. His knuckles had gone white, but his face remained blank. Every word was burning itself into his memory. Every syllable was evidence of conspiracy, medical fraud, negligent homicide. Dr. Voss responded, her voice quieter, uncertain. The trials are falsified. The data is ready. The drug will get fast-track approval, even though it's ineffective. She hesitated. But Tiberius, the Ashcroft child is 4 years old. Tiberius cut her off with the impatience of a man accustomed to obedience. The child isn't the problem. The father is the problem. Morton Ashcroft works 3 jobs and makes noise. Morton heard his own name spoken with contempt, heard himself described as a problem to be eliminated. If the child dies while on the list, it looks like bad luck. We're protected. Caldwell is protected, and we get $900 million in contracts. This isn't a moral question, Helena. This is business. $900 million. That's what Caleb's life was worth to them. A rounding error in a state contract. A line item to be sacrificed for political convenience. 3 seconds of silence followed. Morton stood there, tray tucked under his arm, face composed in perfect servile blankness. But inside, everything had crystallized into absolute clarity. This man had sentenced his son to death. Casually. Over duck and wine. While sitting in a restaurant, confident that his wealth and his language made him untouchable. Morton looked at Tiberius Draymore, this billionaire philanthropist who funded cancer research while personally blocking children's access to treatment. This man who thought speaking Arabic in New Jersey made him invisible. This man who had no idea he was talking to a DIA linguist who'd spent 18 months in Damascus interrogating men far more dangerous than him. The exhaustion in Morton's feet vanished. The weight of medical bills, custody hearings, 3 jobs, all of it compressed into a single cold point of decision. He clasped his hands in front of his apron, tilted his head slightly, locked eyes with Tiberius. The silence stretched. Tiberius's smile began to falter. He'd expected confusion, expected stammering, expected Morton to call for a manager who spoke real languages. He didn't expect the shift in Morton's expression, from servile to something else entirely. Something cold, something dangerous. And he definitely didn't expect what was about to come out of Morton's mouth. Morton didn't reach for his notepad, didn't call for a manager, didn't apologize, or ask Tiberius to repeat himself in English. Instead, he did something that changed the molecular structure of the air around table 12. He adjusted his posture, straightened his spine, shifted his weight so he stood taller, looming slightly over the seated billionaire. When he spoke, the tone of his voice changed completely. Gone was the flat subservient monotone of the overworked server. In its place, the rich, precise tenor of a man who'd spent 4 years in hostile territories interrogating high-value targets. The voice of someone who'd sat across from ISIS commanders and extracted confessions, using nothing but linguistic manipulation. Sir, if you wish to use the subjunctive tense to impress me, I suggest you review your conjugations first. Tiberius froze. The fork he'd been holding hovered halfway to his mouth. His eyes widened like a man watching his own execution. The color drained from his face in real time, from Mediterranean tan to pale gray to something approaching translucent. Morton continued, his Arabic flawless, surgical. Your request for the duck is noted, although comparing its skin to glass is a clumsy metaphor, typically reserved for bad 19th century poetry. Dr. Voss's water glass stopped halfway to her lips. From the neighboring table, a silver-haired businessman in a tailored suit lowered his Wall Street Journal, suddenly riveted. The busboy, Tyler, 19, working his way through community college, stood frozen with a pitcher of water extended like a statue. Morton wasn't finished. He shifted his weight again, and when he spoke, his voice dropped into that particular register of academic condescension that only comes from years of actual expertise. As for the wine, it is not vinegar. It is a 2015 Chateau Margaux. He paused, letting the silence stretch like piano wire. The acidity you detect is the signature of young tannins, which require an educated palate to appreciate. Then came the kill shot, delivered with the same pleasant professional tone he'd used to offer water. If that is too complex for you, I would be delighted to bring you a sweet Merlot, something simpler to match your tastes. The silence that followed was absolute. Physical. The kind that happens when the fundamental architecture of reality shifts. The server wasn't supposed to speak like this. The help wasn't supposed to be educated. The invisible man wasn't supposed to dismantle a billionaire using the billionaire's own weapon. Tiberius's face turned crimson. His mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. His brain was visible, scrambling, trying to process this impossible reversal. He'd set up a simple game. Wealthy man humiliates poor server using linguistic superiority. The server was supposed to stammer, call for help, prove his inferiority. But Morton had taken the weapon and turned it into a scalpel, corrected his grammar, insulted his palate, offered him something simpler. The patronization was so smooth, so cold, so devastatingly polite, that everyone within earshot understood exactly what had just happened. A public execution performed in a language most of them couldn't understand, but whose meaning was universal. Tiberius opened his mouth to shout, to demand Morton be fired immediately. But switching to English now would be admitting defeat. He'd started this game in Arabic. Morton had ended it in Arabic. Then Morton leaned forward slightly, not aggressive, just enough to command the space, and shifted dialects. From Damascene to formal diplomatic Arabic. The kind used in UN negotiations. The kind that signaled institutional authority. But let me be perfectly clear, Mr. Draymore. I understood every word you've said since the moment you sat down. The moment Morton said his name, his actual name, Tiberius's face went from crimson to white. Every detail about the Ashcroft child who needs to be moved to deceased after the governor's election. Dr. Voss made a strangled sound. Her hand flew to her throat. Then, involuntarily, shockingly, a sharp laugh escaped her lips. She clamped her hand over her mouth immediately, eyes wide with horror. But she'd laughed. At Tiberius Draymore, the man who controlled her hospital's funding. She'd laughed because Morton had just done what no one in her world had ever dared. Morton straightened, adjusted his apron with deliberate precision. His voice returned to English, but the coldness remained. I'll put the duck in for you, sir. And I'll bring the Merlot. I think you'll find it much easier to swallow. He nodded to Dr. Voss. Madame. Then he turned and walked away, head high, the tray tucked professionally under his arm. Behind him, Tiberius Draymore sat drowning, while perfect Arabic hung in the air like smoke. As Morton pushed through the kitchen doors, his hands started shaking. What have I done? The man who controls whether my son lives or dies. I just signed Caleb's death warrant. But Morton didn't know that someone else in that dining room had been listening to every word. Someone who recognized the Arabic, someone who owed Morton his life, and someone who was about to stand up. Morton made it 3 steps past the kitchen doors before his knees buckled. He grabbed the stainless steel prep counter, breath coming in jagged gasps. His hands shook so violently, the empty glasses on his tray rattled like wind chimes in a storm. What have I done? The adrenaline that had held him upright, that had let him speak with surgical precision, dismantle a billionaire in his own language, evaporated. In its place, crushing weight. I just humiliated a man worth $4.7 billion. The man who controls whether Caleb lives or dies. I just signed my son's death warrant. Morton. Charles Henderson's voice cut through the kitchen noise like a blade. The floor manager stood there, face pale, eyes darting toward the dining room where Tiberius hunched over his phone, typing with furious energy. What did you say to him? He ordered in Arabic. I replied in Arabic. I don't speak Arabic, but I know the tone of an insult when I hear it. That man brings pharmaceutical clients here 3 times a week. Did you curse at him? No. Morton's voice trembled. I corrected his grammar. Told him the wine was too complex for his palate. Henderson stared for 3 full seconds. Something flickered across his face. Admiration, maybe shock, before being extinguished by terror. You have a death wish. Stay in the back. Don't go near that table. Send Tyler. If Draymore demands to see you, you're done. I can't save you if he makes this a war. Morton nodded and retreated deeper into the kitchen. Heat hit him like a wall. Pans seared. Chefs shouted in French and Spanish. Steam rose in thick clouds. He found a corner near the dish pit, grabbed a basket of forks and a polishing cloth. As he scrubbed water spots, his mind raced. Maybe I can apologize. Maybe if I grovel, explain about Caleb. But no. Men like Tiberius Draymore didn't accept apologies. They accepted submission or destruction. Nothing in between. Morton pressed his forehead against cold steel. This is the moment most people break, when speaking truth costs everything. When the system punishes honesty. If you've ever stood up to someone powerful and felt the ground disappear beneath you, you know this feeling. What happens next will show you exactly why most people stay silent. The question isn't whether Morton was right. The question is, would you have done the same? Back in the dining room, Tiberius was thinking strategically. He couldn't fire Morton, didn't own the restaurant. Couldn't arrest him for speaking Arabic, not a crime. Couldn't prove Morton insulted him without admitting what he'd said in Arabic first. No, he needed something clean. Something that would destroy Morton without reflecting poorly on himself. Then he saw it. His titanium American Express black card, sitting on the table edge where he'd placed it 15 minutes ago. Perfect. Tiberius palmed the card smoothly, slipping it into his left interior jacket pocket. He stood abruptly. I need the restroom. Don't let them clear the table. He walked past the service station, past the kitchen doors, returned 90 seconds later with calculated concern on his face. He sat, looked around the table, patted his pockets theatrically. His voice rose, sharp and carrying. Where's my card? Dr. Voss looked up, startled. Your what? My credit card. I left it right here. It's gone. Are you sure? Helena, I know where I put my card. I left it right here. It's a black Amex. Titanium. The only person near this table was the server. Heads turned at neighboring tables. Kyle hurried over. Is there a problem, sir? Yes. I left my credit card here 2 minutes ago. Now it's gone. The server was the only one with access. I want him brought out here, immediately. I want him to empty his pockets. Sir, I'm sure there's an explanation. The explanation is theft. Tiberius's voice reached half the dining room now. I'm calling the police. Criminal theft. I want that server arrested. Go get Morton Ashcroft, now. Within 60 seconds, the restaurant transformed from upscale elegance to scandal. Diners pulled out phones. Whispers spread. Tyler stood frozen. And in the kitchen, Morton heard his name being shouted. Morton, get out here. Now. Morton untied his apron, folded it carefully, and walked through the doors. The scene was worse than imagined. Tiberius stood center room, phone in hand, pointing at Morton like a prosecutor. Henderson looked ready to collapse. Dr. Voss had her head in her hands. Every diner, 40 people minimum, had stopped eating to watch. There he is, Tiberius announced. The thief. Morton walked forward slowly. Didn't look at the recording phones. Didn't look at Henderson. Looked directly at Tiberius. I did not take your card, Mr. Draymore. And you know that. Oh, I know it. Tiberius laughed. Harsh, ugly. You're a server. You're desperate. I saw your shoes. You looked at my watch. You people are all the same. You think the world owes you something, because you failed at life. He stepped closer, invading Morton's space. Empty your pockets. Now. Or, I call the NYPD, and they strip search you in a squad car. Your choice, sweetheart. This was it. The precipice. Empty his pockets, and submit. Refuse and face arrest. With custody hearing 9 days away, even an accusation would destroy him. But Tiberius had made one fatal mistake. He'd assumed Morton was alone. Assumed no one in this room of wealth and power would stand up for a broke single dad. He was wrong. Because in the corner booth, a man who'd been reading a newspaper very slowly stood up. And when he spoke, his voice carried diplomatic authority that made billionaires tremble. That will be quite enough, Mr. Draymore. The voice was low, gravelly, carrying an accent unmistakably Middle Eastern but polished by decades of international diplomacy. It cut through the tension like a blade through silk. Every head turned. From the corner booth, table 9, partially hidden by a marble column, an older man stood. Late 60s, wearing a well-worn tweed jacket that looked expensive the way truly old money does. Understated, perfectly tailored, quietly powerful. Silver hair, dark eyes, military bearing softened by age. He'd been nursing a single glass of cognac for the past hour, apparently reading the Financial Times. But he hadn't been reading. He'd been listening. To everything. Tiberius spun around. Who the hell are you? This is a private matter. It is not private when you make accusations of theft in a public space. The man walked forward with deliberate slowness, not aggressive swagger, but terrifying authority. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself. He stopped 3 feet from Tiberius and Morton, pulled a leather credential case from his jacket pocket, opened it with practiced precision. My name is Dr. Rashid Al-Zarani, ambassador of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to the United Nations. The restaurant went completely silent. Henderson's face went translucent. Tiberius's eyes widened, then narrowed. Ambassador, with all due respect, this doesn't concern. It concerns me when I witness attempted fraud. You claim your credit card was stolen. I believe you are mistaken. I know where I left my card. Tiberius's voice had developed a quaver, first crack in the armor. Do you? The ambassador smiled. Thin, dangerous. Then I suggest you check the inside pocket of your jacket. The left one. The one you reached for when you stood to create this spectacle. Tiberius froze. His hand twitched toward his left breast pocket, then stopped. That's absurd. I didn't. Check it. Not a suggestion. An order delivered in the tone of someone accustomed to being obeyed by heads of state. The entire restaurant held its breath. Phones raised. Recording. Tiberius's jaw clenched. He was trapped. Refuse, and look guilty. Check and find nothing. Claim vindication. Check and find the card. His hand moved slowly to his pocket. The pocket he'd patted nervously before sitting. The pocket where he'd hidden the card himself. His fingers touched something hard. Color drained from his face. He pulled his hand out. Between his fingers, the black titanium American Express card. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Ah, Ambassador Al-Zahrani said dryly. A miracle. The laws of physics suspended themselves to transport your card from table to pocket. Or perhaps you placed it there yourself to destroy this man's life for the crime of speaking Arabic better than you do. The diners who'd looked at Morton with suspicion now looked at Tiberius with disgust. Phones that had been ready to capture theft now captured something else entirely. A billionaire exposed as a liar. Whispers started. He tried to frame him. Did you see his face? That's Tiberius Draymore, the pharmaceutical guy. Tiberius's carefully constructed public image crumbled in real time. I must have. It was an honest mistake. It was not a mistake. Ambassador Al-Zahrani's voice cut through the stammering. I have sat in this restaurant for 90 minutes. I heard every word you spoke. In Arabic. About medical fraud. About blocking treatment for a dying child. About falsifying FDA data in exchange for state contracts. Dr. Voss made a strangled sound, stood abruptly, knocked her water glass over. I don't know what you think you heard. Tiberius's voice rose in pitch. I heard you discuss delaying treatment for the Ashcroft child until after Governor Caldwell's election. I heard you mention $900 million in contracts. I heard you casually plan the death of a 4-year-old boy for political convenience. He turned to Morton, his voice softened. Mr. Ashcroft. It has been a long time. Morton stared, mind racing. The face was familiar but older. The voice triggered something. Iraq, 2019, outside Mosul. Operation Red Wing, Morton whispered. The ISIS ambush. The safe house in Erbil. You carried me 6 kilometers through hostile territory, with a bullet in your leg. You refused medevac until I was safe. You saved my life, Mr. Ashcroft. And tonight I find you here, working as a server, while this man plots to kill your son. Morton's throat tightened. He'd saved Al-Zahrani during an ISIS raid gone sideways. Dragged him out under fire through 3 checkpoints. He'd never seen him again, until tonight. Ambassador Al-Zahrani turned back to Tiberius. I am making a phone call tonight. To the United States Attorney General. I will personally deliver testimony regarding what I witnessed. Every word you spoke will be translated, transcribed, submitted as evidence. You can't. You have no authority. I have diplomatic immunity and a direct line to the Department of Justice. You have just committed attempted fraud, conspiracy to commit medical malpractice, and bribery of a state official, in front of 40 witnesses and at least 10 recording devices. He gestured to the phones. I suggest you leave. Immediately. What no one noticed, a young woman at table 7 had been live streaming her dinner for 20 minutes. She'd caught everything. The Arabic confrontation. The false accusation. The card reveal. The ambassador's testimony. Her phone screen showed live viewers, 47,328. And climbing. By the time Tiberius realized what was happening, the video had 200,000 views. And it was still live. Tiberius looked around, at the phones, at the faces, at the ambassador who'd promised to destroy him. He did what powerful men do when cornered. He attacked, pulled out his phone, made a call, not to his lawyer, not his PR team, to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Because if Tiberius Draymore was going down, he was taking Morton with him. Tiberius's face was the color of raw meat, mottled red and white, rage and fear competing for dominance. His hands trembled as he pressed his phone to his ear, but his voice was steady, calculated. This was the voice of a man who'd spent decades weaponizing institutional power. Yes, this is Tiberius Draymore. I'm calling to report a suspicious individual at Rousseau Restaurant, 147 Market Street, Newark, claiming to be a former government contractor but displaying hostile behavior. Possible security threat. Morton's blood went cold. Ambassador Al-Zahrani stepped forward. You're calling ICE on a U.S. citizen. I'm reporting suspicious behavior. This man claims to have worked in Syria for 18 months. Claims to speak multiple languages. Claims to have classified clearance. But he's working as a server? That's irregular. Worth investigating. It was brilliant in its cruelty. Tiberius couldn't arrest Morton for speaking Arabic. Couldn't fire him without looking vindictive. but he could weaponize the post-9/11 security apparatus. Trigger an investigation taking hours to resolve. Hours Morton didn't have. Within 12 minutes, 2 ICE officers arrived. Professional, apologetic, but firm. "Mr. Ashcroft, we need you to come with us to answer questions about your employment history and security clearance status." "I'm a U.S. citizen." Morton pulled out his driver's license. "I have documentation." "We understand, sir. This is procedural, Homeland Security protocols. Should only take a few hours." Ambassador Al-Zarani intervened immediately. "Officers, I am a United Nations diplomat. This man is a former Defense Intelligence Agency linguist. I can personally vouch." "Ambassador, we appreciate that, but we have our orders. Someone filed a report. We have to process it." Morton looked at Marcus by the kitchen doors, face stricken. "Call Rodriguez," Morton said quietly. "Captain Elena Rodriguez, their former DIA commanding officer, now at the Pentagon. Tell her what's happening. I'm coming with you to the station." "No. Stay here. Guard that recording." The recording of Tiberius's confession, still on Marcus's phone. As Morton was escorted toward the door, not in handcuffs, but flanked by ICE officers which looked the same, his phone rang. Screen, St. Barnabas Hospital. His heart stopped. "I need to answer this. It's my son's hospital." The officer hesitated, then nodded. Morton pressed the phone to his ear. "This is Morton. Mr. Ashcroft, this is Nurse Chen in pediatric oncology." Her voice was tight, professional, scared. Caleb's oxygen saturation dropped suddenly. His breathing is labored. "We're moving him to intensive care. The doctor wants you here as soon as possible." The world tilted. How bad? His white blood cell count crashed. "We're stabilizing him, but, Mr. Ashcroft, you should come now. We're not sure how much time. Not sure how much time. I'm on my way. Tell him Daddy's coming." He lowered the phone, looked at the ICE officers. "My son is in the hospital. He's 4 years old. He has leukemia. He's crashing. I need to go to him, please." The older officer, a woman with gray streaking her dark hair, looked genuinely pained. "Sir, I'm sorry. We have to process you first. Once we verify your identity and clearance status, that could take 6 hours, usually 2 to 3 with expedited processing. He might not have 3 hours. This was the nightmare. Not being there when Caleb needed him. Not holding his hand when monitors started beeping. Not whispering, "Daddy's here," when Caleb woke up scared. Caleb, alone, asking for him. Caleb, wondering why Daddy broke his promise. Tiberius watched from across the restaurant, expression triumphant. He'd won. Morton was being detained. The father couldn't reach the son, and if the child died while Morton was in federal custody, tragic, but convenient. Ambassador Al-Zarani pulled out his phone, dialed from memory. "Caroline, it's Rashid. I'm witnessing a humanitarian crisis and deliberate abuse of federal authority. I need immediate intervention." He was calling Caroline Hayes, Deputy Attorney General of the United States. They'd worked together 15 years on counterterrorism financing after 9/11. She owed him. A former DIA linguist is being detained on false pretenses, while his 4-year-old son is dying in a hospital 8 miles away. The man who filed the report is under investigation for medical fraud. "I need you to make a phone call. Now." He listened for 10 seconds. "Thank you, Caroline."
He turned to the ICE officers. "Stop. You're about to receive a call from the Deputy Attorney General's office, ordering you to release Mr. Ashcroft immediately." The older officer's phone rang. She answered. Listened. Her face went from neutral to shocked. "Yes, ma'am. Understood." She lowered the phone. "You're free to go. Our apologies for the inconvenience." Morton didn't wait for explanation. He was already running. Out the door, across the parking lot. His car, a 2009 Honda Civic, with 180,000 miles and cracked windshield, was parked on the street. Marcus was behind him. "I'm driving. You're in no shape." They climbed in. Marcus gunned the engine. The drive from Newark to St. Barnabas Hospital in Livingston was normally 35 minutes. Marcus made it in 19. Morton burst through the ICU doors at 10:47 p.m. Nurse Chen met him in the hallway, expression unreadable. "He's stable, for now." Morton pushed into room 7. Caleb was there, tiny in the hospital bed, oxygen mask on his face, monitors beeping steadily. His eyes were closed. Then slowly they opened. When he saw his father, the smallest smile crossed his lips. "Daddy, you came." But Morton barely heard him, because standing in the corner of the hospital room in a white coat was Dr. Helena Voss, and she'd been waiting for him. Morton fell to his knees beside Caleb's bed, gripping his son's small hand. The IV line tugged slightly. The oxygen mask fogged with each tiny breath. Caleb's eyes, enormous in his thin face, dark circles underneath, focused on his father. "Hey, buddy." Morton whispered, voice cracking. Daddy's here. I'm here. You promised, Caleb said, voice muffled by the mask. You said you'd read to me. I know. I'm sorry I'm late. I got held up at work, but I'm here now. Is work bad? No, baby. Work is fine. How are you feeling? Tired. Caleb's eyes started closing. The nurse said my cells are fighting. She said you're fighting too. She said you're fighting so hard for me. Morton pressed his forehead against their joined hands. I'm fighting, buddy. I promise I'm fighting. Behind him, Dr. Voss cleared her throat softly. Morton turned. For the first time, he got a clear look at her. The elegant composure from the restaurant was gone. She looked haggard, mascara smudged, hair falling from its pins, hands trembling. Mr. Ashcroft, can we speak outside? Morton kissed Caleb's forehead. I'll be right back, okay? Right outside the door. Caleb nodded sleepily. In the hallway, Dr. Voss leaned against the wall like it was the only thing holding her up. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I turned myself in. Morton stared. I called the New Jersey Attorney General's office 20 minutes ago. I told them everything. The falsified trial data. The blocked treatment approvals. The deal with Governor Caldwell. The $900 million in contracts. All of it. Why? Her eyes filled with tears. Because I can't do it anymore. I became a doctor to save children. And tonight I sat in a restaurant and listened to a billionaire discuss letting a 4-year-old die for political convenience. I sat there. I didn't walk out. I didn't object. I was complicit. She pulled a tissue from her coat pocket, wiped her eyes. Your son is number 3 on the wait list. But he was never supposed to get treatment. Tiberius blocked him 2 weeks ago. Governor Caldwell asked him to as a favor to your ex-wife. They wanted you to give up, to surrender custody, to let Caleb die quietly so they wouldn't have to deal with the financial burden or the scandal. Morton's hands clenched into fists. But here's what I did tonight. I called the treatment board. I'm resigning as department head effective immediately. But before I do, I'm invoking my emergency override authority. Caleb is approved. The CAR T-cell therapy starts tomorrow morning. The deposit is waived. The full treatment is covered under the hospital's Compassionate Care Fund. Morton's knees went weak. You're what? He's approved, Mr. Ashcroft. We start tomorrow. Your son is going to get the treatment. For a moment, Morton couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The weight he'd been carrying for 6 months, the impossible math, the counting ritual, the 72-hour deadline, suddenly lifted.
Why would you do this? Because I have a daughter. She's 7, and tonight I realized that if someone was plotting to let her die, I'd want another parent, any parent, to stand up. So I'm standing up, even though it's going to cost me everything. She looked through the window into Caleb's room. They'll revoke my medical license. I'll probably face criminal charges for my role in the FDA fraud. I'll lose my position, my reputation, everything I built. But I'll be able to live with myself. She pulled a manila folder from under her arm. This is Caleb's treatment protocol. We begin at 7 a.m. The therapy takes 6 weeks. Success rate is 73%. I'm handing his case to Dr. Patel, the best pediatric oncologist in the state. To her, Caleb is just another patient who needs saving. She handed Morton the folder. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I almost did. Morton looked at this woman who'd been part of a conspiracy to kill his son, who'd just destroyed her entire life to make it right. Thank you. Thank you for breaking. Dr. Voss nodded. Then she turned and walked down the hallway toward the elevators, toward the end of her career, toward whatever consequences awaited. But she walked with her head up. Morton returned to Caleb's bedside. His son was asleep now, breathing steadily, monitors beeping their reassuring rhythm. He pulled a worn paperback from his jacket pocket. Where the Wild Things Are. He opened to the first page and began to read, voice soft. The night Max wore his wolf suit and made mischief of one kind and another. 20 minutes later, Marcus slipped into the room. The video is everywhere. 4 million views and climbing. FBI raided Draymore Foundation headquarters 2 hours ago. Ambassador Al-Zarani gave a statement to CNN. Morton kept reading. Morton, you won. You actually won. I didn't win anything. Caleb's still sick. 73% survival rate means 27% chance he dies anyway. The custody hearing is still in 9 days. I'm still broke. I still owe $180,000 in medical debt. He looked up. But my son is alive. And tomorrow, he starts treatment. So I didn't win. I just didn't lose. Not yet. Morton didn't know it yet. But while he sat reading to his sleeping son, the world outside was burning down the system that had tried to kill them. And the viral video had done something no lawsuit ever could. It made people care. But there was one more chapter. One more morning. One moment that would change everything. February 14th, Valentine's Day. 6 months after that night, Morton sat in the waiting room at Princeton Plainsboro Medical Center, no longer wearing the server's uniform. Instead, jeans, a button-down shirt from Macy's, boots that weren't held together with superglue. He was waiting for Caleb's 6-month post-treatment scan. Beside him sat Nurse Chen, the woman who'd called that night to say Caleb was crashing. She'd become family over the months, checking in during shifts, bringing Caleb toy trucks, sitting with Morton during the hardest treatment days. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "Ask me after the scan results. He's been in remission for 4 months. The odds are good. Odds have never been my friend." The door opened. Dr. Patel emerged, holding a tablet. Her face was professionally neutral. Morton stood, heart hammering. Dr. Patel looked at him. Then slowly she smiled. "Clear. Caleb's scans are completely clear. No cancer markers. His white blood cell count is normal. T-cells are strong. Mr. Ashcroft, your son is in full remission." Morton's legs gave out. He sat down hard. Chen grabbed his arm. "He's okay?" "He's more than okay. The CAR T-cell therapy worked better than we hoped. Barring any unforeseen complications, Caleb should live a completely normal life." Morton put his face in his hands and wept. Through the exam room window, Morton could see Caleb sitting on the table, swinging his legs, chattering excitedly. His hair had grown back, still short, but brown and thick. His cheeks had color, Spider-Man t-shirt and light-up sneakers. He looked like a normal 4-year-old, not a cancer patient, just a kid. This is the moment that makes every sleepless night, every humiliation, every impossible choice worth it. This is the moment most parents pray for but never get. If you felt even a fraction of what Morton felt, then you understand why the next generation needs to see this. Why your children, your siblings, your friends, need to know that the system can be beaten. That speaking truth to power matters. That one voice in a restaurant can change everything. If this story mattered to you, make sure it matters to someone else. That's how we make sure the Tiberius Draymores of the world never win again. Morton was no longer working 3 jobs. After the video went viral, a GoFundMe raised $2.3 million in 4 days. Morton paid off Caleb's medical debt entirely. The rest went into a trust for Caleb's education. The Defense Intelligence Agency offered him a position as civilian contractor for cultural and linguistic training at Fort Meade. $120,000 per year with full federal benefits. He'd be home for dinner every night. Tiberius Draymore was arrested the morning after the restaurant incident. Federal charges: conspiracy to commit medical fraud, bribery, falsification of FDA data. His foundation collapsed. Within 3 weeks, he was awaiting trial in Manhattan. If convicted, he faced 20 to 30 years in federal prison. Governor Caldwell resigned 11 days after the incident. He and Vanessa separated 6 weeks later. Vanessa tried to resurface the custody case 3 months ago. The judge's ruling was 3 sentences long. The mother voluntarily terminated all parental rights when the child was diagnosed with cancer. She then attempted to use political influence to deny medical treatment. Motion denied with prejudice. Ambassador al-Zarani returned to New York every quarter. He'd become Uncle Rashid to Caleb, bringing gifts from around the world, teaching him Arabic phrases. He quietly established the Ashcroft al-Zarani Medical Access Fund, with a $10 million endowment. Morton stood on the beach at Island Beach State Park. February was cold, but the sun was out. The Atlantic stretched endless and gray. Caleb was 20 feet away, crouching to examine something in the sand. "Daddy, I found another shell. Bring it here, buddy." Caleb ran over, clutching a perfect white clamshell. His cheeks were pink from cold. His eyes were bright. "Can we come back when it's warm enough to swim?" "Absolutely. Every weekend if you want." "Every weekend." Morton crouched to Caleb's eye level, looked at his son. This miracle, this fighter, this beautiful impossible kid who was alive. "I love you, buddy." "I love you too, Daddy." Caleb hugged him. "Will you fight the bad cells if they come back?" "I'll fight anything that tries to hurt you." "Even billionaires?" Morton laughed, a real laugh, the first in months without grief attached. "Especially billionaires." That night, Morton tucked Caleb into bed in their new apartment in Montclair. 2 bedrooms, real kitchen, windows that let in light. He opened Where the Wild Things Are to the first page. "Again?" Caleb asked. "Again." Caleb's eyes closed, his breathing evened out. Morton sat there 20 minutes more, watching his son sleep, listening to the steady proof of life. Then he closed the book, turned off the light, and allowed himself, finally, to believe they'd made it. This is the story of how one father, one night, and 7 languages, took down a corrupt system. But more than that, it's proof that your worth isn't determined by your job title, your bank account, or how powerful people see you. It's determined by what you're willing to fight for when everything is on the line. Morton Ashcroft was just a server. Until he wasn't, Tiberius Draymore was untouchable. Until he wasn't, and that matters. Because somewhere right now, another parent is counting money they don't have. Another family is being denied care they need. Another person is being underestimated by someone who thinks they're too powerful to fall. This story is for them. Make sure they see it.